As usual, if you like these stories or it felt meaningful to you, feel free to like, share, and comment your thoughts below, as well as subscribe to our channel. It could be a huge support for our work. Now, let's just enjoy the stories.
My shoe hit the marble wrong, and a blade of pain shot up my calf so hard my breath snapped in my throat. I kept walking anyway because stopping would be worse than limping, because the lobby was all glass and echoes, and the security camera over the concierge desk would catch the second I faltered. My badge swung against my ribs like it was trying to warn me. I tasted metal, the kind that comes when you've been biting the inside of your cheek to keep from making noise. I was late. Again. My heel dragged, just a whisper, and every whisper sounded like an announcement in this building. I fixed my face into something neutral, something employee-shaped, and pushed through the last steps toward the elevators as if nothing inside me was shaking. I could feel eyes on my back before I saw him, the pressure of attention like a hand at the nape of my neck. And when I glanced toward the mezzanine balcony and found him looking down, calm as stone, I understood with a sick drop in my stomach that I couldn't explain my limp away, because the man who owned this building noticed everything, and his gaze didn't move as the doors began to close, like he'd already decided I belonged in his line of sight. The elevator was too bright. It made the small things obvious, the way my fingers trembled around my folder, the faint smear of foundation at the edge of my collar where it had rubbed off against skin that was tender, the way my knee refused to lock the way it used to. I shifted my weight and the ache flared, hot and deep, like someone had poured ink into my muscle and it was spreading. I stared at my reflection in the steel panel and willed myself not to look like a woman trying to outrun something that lived in her own apartment. A group of men in suits got in on the 22nd floor, and their cologne made my stomach turn because it reminded me of Brennick's aftershave, the kind that tried too hard to be clean. I kept my eyes forward, held my folder tighter, counted silent numbers with the rhythm of my heartbeat. 26, 27, 28. That was my age, not my count. But it felt like counting anyway, like keeping track of years you'd survived without anyone noticing what you were swallowing. When the elevator opened at 34, I walked out before the suited men could. I didn't want them behind me. I didn't want anyone behind me. The hallway to our office was carpeted so thick it muffled everything. It should have felt like safety, but the silence made my own footsteps too loud in my head. I rounded the corner and saw the glass wall of Lark and Wren Property Management, our neat little island inside a tower of money and power, and my pulse eased for half a second. Then I saw the clock above reception. 9:14. I was 14 minutes late. I straightened automatically, like posture could erase time. I smoothed my skirt with a palm that shook, adjusted the strap of my bag to sit higher over the bruise on my shoulder, and pushed through the glass door with the practiced calm of someone who'd learned how to look fine while cracking inside. Cyrillune, my supervisor said without looking up from her screen, like my name was a checkbox. Conference room. Now. Of course. The conference room was all minimalist white and chrome. The blinds were open, and sunlight cut stripes over the table like bars. There were people inside already. Our leasing director, two senior agents, the CFO who came down from corporate twice a month to remind us we were replaceable. And at the head of the table, slightly apart from everyone else like he was the axis the room was built around, sat the man from the mezzanine, Mailer Sorel. I'd seen him before, of course. Everyone had. His face was on business magazines, on gala photos, on the discreet signage in the lobby that marked this building as a Sorel Holdings property. He was never loud in pictures. He was never smiling, always just contained. As if the world moved around him and he didn't need to move back. In person, the effect was worse. It wasn't that he was impossibly handsome in a way that made women sigh and men resent him. It was that he looked like he could be kind if he chose, and terrifying if he didn't, and that you would never know which one you were getting until it was too late to adjust your breathing. His suit was dark, perfectly cut, and he wore it like it wasn't armor, like it was simply another layer of control. His hands rested on the table, long-fingered, still. A simple watch at his wrist. No rings. Nothing flashy. His eyes lifted the moment I stepped in. I tried to keep my steps even. I tried to distribute my weight so the limp would disappear into normal human imperfection. I tried to be invisible. But pain has its own truth, and bodies betray you for reasons you can't bribe. My knee stuttered, my heel dragged, and Mailer Sorrell watched it happen with the quiet focus of someone noticing a crack in bulletproof glass. "I'm so sorry," I blurted, because I'd been trained to apologize for existing, and because if I spoke first, maybe I could steer the moment away from the thing I was hiding. My voice came out too thin. Traffic was... There was an accident on the bridge. I... I'm sorry. My supervisor's mouth tightened. The CFO didn't even look up. Mailer did. He didn't say anything at first. He just held my gaze long enough that heat crawled up my throat, long enough that my lungs forgot how to take in air without sounding like a confession. "You're late," he said finally. It wasn't loud, it wasn't angry. It was simply a fact, placed on the table like a paperweight. "Yes," I whispered, then hated myself for sounding like a child. "I know." He looked at me for a few seconds longer, and in those seconds I felt stripped down to the raw places under my skin. Then his eyes dipped, just briefly, to my legs. "You're limping," he said. The room didn't react. No one else seemed to register it as anything more than an observation, but my stomach clenched so hard I thought I might be sick. My hand tightened on the folder until the edges bit into my palm. My mouth went dry. My brain threw up a dozen lies and none of them felt solid enough. I twisted it. "Last night. It's nothing." Maylor's gaze returned to my face. There was no sympathy there. Not yet. There was something else. Quieter. Sharper. Assessment. "Nothing makes you drag your foot like that," he said. The leasing director shifted in his chair like he wanted to disappear. My supervisor glanced at Maylor, then at me, and in her eyes I saw irritation, not concern. I'd already used up my allotment of grace. "Cyraloon," she said, emphasizing each syllable. "We can discuss your personal issues later. Mr. Sorrell is here for the quarterly occupancy review." Mailer didn't look away from me. "You can sit," he said, and the room somehow rearranged itself around the permission in his voice. A chair at the side of the table slid out. No one touched it, but it happened anyway, because people moved when he spoke. I walked to it and sat carefully, controlling my face as my knee screamed. My pulse roared in my ears. I opened my folder with hands that wanted to shake apart and forced my eyes down to the numbers. Occupancy rates, lease renewals, tenant complaints, things that belong to a normal world. But my skin still burned where Brennick's fingers had dug into my arm last night as he dragged me back from the door. "You don't leave, Seer. You don't walk out on me. You don't make me look like that." His breath had been hot with whiskey. His voice had been soft the way it always got right before he did something that would make me apologize later. I answered questions when they were directed at me. I spoke about vacancy turnover and the timeline for renovating 3 units on the 50th floor. I kept my voice steady, professional. I would have passed for fine to anyone who didn't know how to read the micro-flinches of a woman in pain. Mailer knew. I felt it every time his eyes slid to me, not often, but with purpose, as if he was collecting pieces. When the meeting ended, people stood up and chattered in that relieved way they do when authority leaves the room. My supervisor leaned over me and hissed, "My office, 2 minutes." I nodded, because nodding is what you do when you can't afford to fight. Mailer rose from his chair, and the movement was smooth, unhurried. He buttoned his jacket, glanced at the CFO, and said something low that made the man straighten like he'd been called by a god. Then Maylor's attention returned to me. "Ms. Vale," he said. My name sounded wrong in his mouth. Too clean, too formal, like he was reading it off a file. I stood because he addressed me, because you stood when he spoke, because my body obeyed power even when it hated it. My knee protested and I caught myself, against the chair back quickly, hoping no one saw. Mailer saw. He took a single step closer, just enough to separate me from the noise of the others. He didn't touch me. He didn't invade my space in a way that would let anyone accuse him of anything. But the air shifted, as if his presence changed the pressure in the room. "Why are you limping?" he asked. I forced a small smile, the one I used on tenants when their sinks overflowed, and they blamed me for water existing. "I told you." I twisted it. He stared at me like my smile was a language he didn't bother learning. "That isn't an ankle twist," he said. My breath caught. It's it's fine." He didn't soften. He didn't raise his voice. He simply waited, and the waiting felt like a vice tightening. Around us, people began to drift out, glancing at us with curiosity they didn't dare indulge for long. The glass walls made everything visible, and somehow, that made me feel more trapped, like a bug in a display box. "I have to," I began, because my supervisor would explode if I didn't go to her office and I couldn't afford another job hunt, not with rent overdue, and Brennick tracking every dollar I spent. "I'm already behind." Maylor's gaze flicked toward my supervisor's office and back. "I'll speak to her," he said. It wasn't an offer. It was a decision. Panic flashed bright. "No, please, it's not necessary." His eyes narrowed a fraction. Not anger. Focus. "Cyraloon," he said, and hearing my first name from him landed like a hand around my throat. "Look at me." I was already looking at him. I had been since the moment he'd noticed. But I lifted my chin anyway because if I didn't, he would see how afraid I was. And fear invites questions. His voice dropped slightly, enough that only I would hear. "Someone hurt you," he said. My chest tightened so fast it felt like my ribs were moving inward. I laughed once, too sharp, too brittle. "No." It came out automatic. A reflex. A lie I'd repeated so many times it lived in the muscle memory of my mouth. Maylor didn't react to the laugh. He watched my eyes. "You're carrying weight on your right side," he said quietly. "You're guarding your left shoulder. You have bruising at the base of your throat under your makeup. You're wearing a long sleeve in a heated building." My skin went cold. My fingers curled into my palms so hard the nails bit. "I bruise easily," I said, because that was the script. "I'm clumsy." Mailer held my gaze, unblinking. "You're not clumsy," he said. The certainty in it knocked something loose inside me. My throat burned. I swallowed hard. "I need to go," I whispered. He stepped back, giving me space like he'd promised himself he would never take what wasn't offered. "After work," he said. "You'll come to my office." My stomach dropped. "I can't." "You can," he replied. I shook my head. Quickly. "I have commitments." His eyes stayed on mine, and his voice remained level. "Are they the kind that leave you limping?" The words hit like a slap, not because they were cruel, but because they were precise. My lungs tightened. I couldn't breathe. "I'm fine," I said again, and the lie tasted like blood. Mailer's gaze moved past me for a fraction of a second, toward the hallway that led to the elevators, toward the world outside this building. When he looked back, something in his expression had sharpened into a quiet promise. "I won't ask you to confess," he said. "I'll ask you to listen. After work. My office." He turned then, as if the conversation was finished, as if I no longer had a choice that mattered. My supervisor appeared in the doorway of her office, face tight with annoyance that quickly smoothed into a forced smile when she saw Mailer. "Mr. Sorrell," she said brightly, "can I—" Mailer didn't slow. "Ms. Vale will not be disciplined for her lateness," he said, and the way he said it made my supervisor's smile freeze and then rearrange into something obedient. "Of course," she managed. Mailer didn't look back at me as he walked out. He didn't need to. My body was already vibrating with the knowledge that he'd seen what I was trying to bury, and that he'd decided it mattered. I sat down slowly, pretending to organize papers while my hands shook. My supervisor's gaze drilled into me like a warning. "What was that?" she hissed as soon as Maylor was out of earshot. "I don't know," I whispered. He just, he asked me something." Her eyes narrowed. "You don't get to be something he asks about. Do you understand? Your staff. You keep your head down. You don't—" She stopped, her gaze flicking to my leg as if she'd suddenly noticed it. "What did you do?" I forced the same smile. I twisted my knee. She exhaled sharply through her nose. "Get it together. You can't afford to look messy here." I almost laughed at the irony. I couldn't afford to look messy anywhere. Messy was what got you judged. Messy was what got you fired. Messy was what made Brennick's mouth curl with disgust before he said, "Look what you make me do." I worked through the day with my knee burning and my nerves frayed raw. Every time my phone buzzed, I flinched. Every time someone's footsteps paused behind my desk, my shoulders tensed. Around noon, a text lit up my screen. "Where are you?" Brennick didn't use punctuation when he was sober. When he was angry, he wrote like each word was a rock thrown at my face. "At work," I typed back. "Busy." Another buzz. "Don't lie." My stomach clenched. I kept my expression blank as a tenant leaned over my desk to complain about the elevator being slow. I nodded at him, apologized, promised to contact maintenance. My fingers trembled as I typed. "I'm not lying." A third buzz came before I could breathe. "We'll talk tonight." I stared at the words until they blurred. My throat tightened. Tonight meant questions. Tonight meant his hands on my wrists while he demanded to know why I'd been late again, why I didn't answer fast enough, why I looked at him like he was a stranger when he was the only one who put up with me. I swallowed hard and forced myself back into the small tasks that kept me afloat. Lease renewals, vendor calls, an endless stream of polite words that had nothing to do with the bruises under my clothes. At 5:03, when the office began to empty, my hands went cold. Mailer's office was on the top floors, past the spaces regular employees didn't enter unless summoned. I'd never been. I'd only seen the private elevators guarded by men with earpieces and faces that didn't invite questions. I told myself I wouldn't go. I told myself it was dangerous. I told myself that being noticed by someone like Maylor Sorrell was not a gift. It was a spotlight, and spotlights burned. But every time I thought of walking out to the street, of the cold air hitting my face, of Brennick's text waiting like a trap, I felt my stomach twist. Safety wasn't a concept in my life. It was a word other people used. At 5:19, my supervisor left with a clipped goodbye. The office was quiet. My phone buzzed once more. "I'll be there at 6. My breath shuddered out. I stared at the screen. My hands began to shake so hard I had to set the phone down. Then, without fully deciding, I stood up. My knee protested. I bit down hard on my cheek and gathered my things with careful, efficient movements. I told myself I was only going to Mailer's office to get ahead of whatever he was going to do anyway, to keep control of the narrative. I told myself I was being smart. The private elevator area was behind a frosted glass wall on the 48th floor. I had to take a separate bank up and then walk down a corridor lined with art that looked like it had never been touched by dust. The building changed as you climbed. The air got cleaner. The carpet got thicker. The silence got deeper, as if sound was considered rude. A man in a black suit stood near the private elevator doors. His hair was cropped close, his jaw like stone. He watched me approach without moving. I slowed, suddenly aware of my limp in a way that made my skin prickle. I'm I'm here to see Mr. Sorrel, I said, and my voice nearly cracked on his name. The man's gaze flicked to my badge. Ms. Vale. Hearing my name from him made my stomach tighten. Yes. He pressed a button and the private elevator opened as if it had been waiting. Up, he said. That was it. No questions, no confirmation. As if Maylor had already decided I would come. The elevator rose smoothly, silently. I watched the floor numbers climb with a strange detachment, like my body was moving while my mind lagged behind. My knee throbbed. My shoulder felt tight under my blouse. When the doors opened, the space beyond wasn't what I expected. No gold, no gaudy luxury. It was dark wood, clean lines, a scent of cedar and something faintly smoky. The lights were low, warm. A wall of windows looked out over the city like a quiet threat. Mailer stood near the glass, jacket off, sleeves rolled to his forearms. He looked like he belonged to the skyline. He turned as I stepped out. You came, he said. I stopped a safe distance away, my bag strap clenched in my hand as if it could anchor me. I don't know why I'm here. Maylor's gaze moved over me with the same controlled focus it had earlier, but now there was no audience, no glass walls, no co-workers to pretend for. The privacy made my pulse race. You're here because you didn't go home immediately, he said. My chest tightened. I'm going home. Not yet, he replied. I bristled instinctively, fear and anger twisting together. You can't tell me where to go. Maylor nodded once, as if acknowledging my right to say it. I can't, he agreed. That's why I'm not telling. I'm asking. He moved toward his desk, slow and deliberate, and sat in the chair behind it. He didn't gesture for me to sit. He didn't rush to make me comfortable. He simply waited, giving me the space to choose what I did with my body. It was oddly respectful, and it made me more nervous because I was used to men who took. What do you want? I asked, and my voice sounded small in the quiet. Mailer studied me for a moment. Your truth, he said. I laughed again, soft and sharp. You don't want my truth. You want your version of it. A flicker of something crossed his face. Not anger, not amusement. Recognition, maybe. Like he knew what it meant to have your story stolen. I want to know if someone is hurting you, he said. And I want to know if you're in danger tonight. My throat tightened. My eyes stung unexpectedly, and I hated myself for it. Tears were weakness. Brennick had taught me that. I'm not in danger, I lied. Maylor leaned back slightly, hands resting on the arms of the chair. He didn't push forward. He didn't demand. He watched me like he had time, like he could wait me out without raising his voice. Tell me his name, he said quietly. My skin went cold. There is no... Cyraloon, Mailer interrupted, and the way he said it wasn't harsh, but it was final. You don't limp from traffic. You don't hide bruises from a staircase. And you don't flinch every time your phone lights up unless the person on the other end has trained you to. My fingers tightened around the bag strap until it hurt. I stared at the floor because his eyes were too much. Because if I looked at him, I might believe he saw me. I can handle it, I whispered. Mailer's voice didn't change. You shouldn't have to. The words hit harder than any accusation. My chest tightened so sharply I had to inhale in pieces. You don't know anything about me? I said, trying to sound firm, trying to build a wall with my voice. I know you're tired, Malor replied. I know you're smart. I know you work like you're afraid of being thrown away. My throat burned. Stop. He stopped. He actually stopped. Silence fell, heavy and complete. I heard the distant hum of the building's ventilation, the far-off murmur of the city outside, muted by thick glass. Mailer watched me for a long moment, and then he spoke again. Slower. I won't touch you, he said. I won't force you to say anything, but I need you to listen to me. I swallowed hard, my mouth dry. I nodded once, barely. Mailer's gaze held mine. If you go home tonight, he said, and he is there, and he is angry, and he decides your limp is a problem, he could damage you in ways that don't heal clean. My stomach twisted. I tried to shake my head, but my body felt stiff, caught between denial and the memory of Brennick's hands. Mailer continued, calm and precise. If you stay here, in this building tonight, you will be safe. I stared at him. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. You can't promise that, I whispered. Mailer's eyes darkened, not with menace, but with something like certainty that came from being the kind of man who didn't speak unless he meant it. In my building, he said, I can promise it. My skin prickled. Why? Mailer's mouth tightened slightly, as if the question annoyed him because it was fair and complicated. Because I dislike injustice, he said. I almost laughed again, but the sound wouldn't come. That's a strange reason. It's a simple one, he replied. A woman who works under my roof should not be broken by someone else. The possessiveness in the phrasing made my stomach dip, even as some part of me, some hungry, bruised part, wanted to lean into the idea of belonging somewhere that didn't hurt. I'm not your responsibility, I said, because it was the only defense I had. Maylor nodded. No, he agreed. You're not. The pause that followed felt like a held breath. And yet, he continued quietly, here you are. My phone buzzed in my bag. My entire body flinched before I could stop it. My throat tightened. I fumbled the bag open, hands shaking, and pulled the phone out. A call. Brennick. My chest went cold. The screen lit my face like an accusation. Mailer didn't move. He didn't reach for the phone. He didn't tell me what to do. He simply watched me with an intensity that made me feel like I was standing at the edge of something irreversible. If I answered, Brennick would hear my breath and know. He would ask where I was. He would use that soft voice that meant danger. He would say my name like a claim. If I didn't answer, he would punish me later. My thumb hovered over the screen. I could hear my pulse. I could taste the metallic tang of fear. Mailer spoke softly. You can let it ring. My eyes snapped to his. He will do what he does, Maylor said, and his voice sharpened just slightly. But if you're here, he cannot reach you. I swallowed hard. My thumb trembled. The call kept ringing. Each vibration felt like a hook in my ribs. I didn't answer. It went to voicemail. For a moment there was only silence and the roar of blood in my ears. My vision swam slightly. I hadn't realized how much of my life was structured around the immediate obedience of that sound. My phone buzzed again. A text. Open the door. I'm outside. My stomach dropped so hard it felt like falling. He's here, I whispered, and the words sounded like surrender. Maylor's eyes didn't widen. He didn't look surprised. If anything, he looked like a man whose suspicions had just been confirmed. He stood. The movement was smooth, controlled, and it changed the air instantly, like a storm forming behind glass. Stay here, he said. My breath hitched. No, if you confront him, he'll... Mailer's gaze held mine, steady. I'm not asking you to be brave, he said. I'm asking you to be safe. My throat burned. You don't understand what he's like. Mailer's mouth tightened. I understand men like him, he said quietly. They only feel strong when someone smaller bleeds. A shiver ran through me, not from cold, but from the sudden clarity of being seen in a way that didn't blame me. Mailer walked toward the door, and as he reached it, he paused and looked back. You'll stay, he said, not as an order, but as a promise he was making to himself. And you'll keep your phone on silent. I nodded because my throat wouldn't work. He left. The door closed with a soft, final click. I stood frozen in the middle of his office, staring at the dark wood, the city lights, the calm luxury that felt like a different universe. My knee throbbed. My hands shook. I pressed the phone to my chest like it could stop my heart from trying to escape my ribs. I heard nothing for a long time. Then, faintly, through the thick walls, the muted sound of voices. I couldn't make out words, only tone. Brennick's voice, even muffled, had a particular cadence, a tight, sharp edge that made my stomach curl. Another voice answered him, lower, quieter, and somehow more terrifying because it didn't need volume to dominate. Maylor. My breath caught. I imagined Brennick puffing himself up, demanding, accusing. I imagined him trying to charm, then threaten. I imagined him saying things like, she's my girlfriend, this is a misunderstanding, she's dramatic. I imagined Maylor listening, and then I imagined Maylor deciding. The thought made my skin go cold and hot at the same time. Minutes passed like hours. My phone buzzed again. Another text. You think you can hide from me in that fancy building? Come down now. My eyes blurred. My throat tightened. I sank slowly onto the edge of the leather chair near the window, careful with my knee, and pressed my free hand over my mouth to keep from making noise. I was shaking. Not just from fear, from something else too. From the unfamiliar fact that I had disobeyed him and the sky hadn't fallen yet. The door opened. Mailer stepped back into the office and closed it behind him. His expression was unchanged, still calm, still controlled, but there was something in his eyes now that wasn't there before. A coldness that made the room feel smaller. He won't come up again, Maylor said. My voice came out thin. What did you do? Maylor's gaze held mine. I told him, he said, that this building is mine, and so is the air he's breathing in it. My stomach clenched. He'll be waiting outside. Maylor nodded slightly. Yes. Panic surged. Then I can't leave. You won't, Maylor replied. The certainty in his voice hit like a wall. I stared at him, my mind scrambling. I can't just not go home, I whispered. I have my things. Your things can be replaced, Maylor said. And then, softer. You can't. The softness cracked something in my chest. Tears threatened. I swallowed hard, furious at my own weakness. Maylor stepped closer, stopping a respectful distance away, as if he was careful not to crowd me. Tell me where you live, he said. My body stiffened. Why? So I can send someone, he replied, to get what you need without you going back. The word someone landed heavy. I thought of the men downstairs, the one who'd known my name, the private elevator opening like a mouth. You're not a cop, I said quietly. No, Maylor agreed, and there was no shame in it. I'm not. The honesty should have scared me more. Instead, it felt like relief, because at least he wasn't pretending. I wrapped my arms around myself, feeling small in my own skin. If you send someone, he'll know. Maylor's gaze sharpened. He already knows, he said. He knows you were somewhere he couldn't control. He knows you didn't answer. That's why you can't return alone. My chest tightened. My mind flashed to Brennick's face when he realized he'd lost ground, the way his eyes went glassy with rage. I can't afford a hotel, I whispered, the practical fear rising like bile. I can't afford anything. If I miss work, if I lose my job. You won't miss work, Mailer said. I stared at him. How can you say that like it's nothing? Mailer's mouth tightened, the closest he'd come to looking displeased. Because I own the building, he said simply. And because I'm telling you, you'll be here tomorrow. My pulse hammered. That's not how life works. Maylor's gaze held mine. For most people, he said quietly. No. The implication made my skin prickle. The world he lived in was one where doors opened, because he decided they should. Where men like Brennick could be told to leave, and they would. I should have run from that world. I knew that. I knew better than to step closer to danger just because it offered shelter. But shelter is a drug when you've been cold for too long. My phone buzzed again. Another text. I swear to God, Sierra, you're done. I flinched. My fingers tightened around the phone until it hurt. Mailer's gaze flicked to it. Turn it off, he said. I hesitated, and the hesitation was the most honest thing about me in that moment. Because turning it off felt like cutting the last thin thread that kept Brennick from showing up in my life like a storm. Mailer watched me struggle and didn't rush me. Cyraloon, he said softly, you don't have to do it all at once, but you do have to start. My throat burned. I stared at the phone, then pressed and held the side button. The screen went dark. In the silence that followed, I felt something shift inside me, like a lock clicking. Mailer exhaled slowly, as if he'd been holding his own breath. Sit, he said gently, and this time it sounded like care, not command. I sat again, carefully, my knee throbbing. I kept my eyes on the city lights because looking at him felt too intimate. Maylor moved to a cabinet behind his desk and poured water into a glass. He set it on the table near me without touching me, without leaning too close. Drink, he said. I didn't want to. Accepting water felt like accepting a story where he was the kind of man who could take care of me, and that story was dangerous. My hands shook as I lifted the glass. The water was cold and clean. It tasted like nothing, and the nothingness made me realize how tense my body had been, how much adrenaline had dried my mouth. Mailer sat across from me again, not behind the desk now, but in a chair angled slightly toward mine. It felt less like an interrogation and more like containment. Like he was positioning himself as a barrier between me and the door. I'm going to ask you questions, he said. You can refuse. I swallowed. Okay. What is his name? My lips parted. My throat tightened. Saying Brennick's name out loud felt like summoning him. Brennick, I whispered. Mailer's eyes narrowed slightly, the name filing itself away in whatever mental cabinet he kept for threats. Does he live with you? Yes. Does he have access to your finances? I hesitated. Shame burned. Yes. Mailer's jaw tightened, a subtle muscle ticking. Does he hit you? My stomach dropped. The bluntness made my skin go cold. I opened my mouth, and the lie rose automatically. No, it's not like that. He didn't mean to. I deserved it. But Maylor was watching my face, and something about his stillness made the lie feel useless. Yes, I whispered. The word landed between us, heavy, undeniable. My eyes stung. I blinked hard, refusing to let tears fall. Maylor's expression didn't change, but the air around him sharpened, like something inside him had gone still and dangerous. Where? He asked, and his voice was quiet enough to be gentle. I swallowed. Mostly where it won't show. Maylor's gaze dropped briefly to my collarbone, where makeup couldn't fully hide the truth. Then back to my eyes. And your knee, he said. I flinched and my hand went to my leg instinctively. I fell, I said quickly, then hated myself for reflexively trying to soften it. Mailer waited. The silence stretched until it became unbearable. He shoved me, I admitted. I hit the corner of the coffee table. Mailer's eyes darkened. His hands remained still on his thighs. His voice stayed controlled. How long? The question cracked me open more than the others, because the answer contained all the years of excuses, all the careful hiding, all the moments I'd told myself it wasn't that bad, because he hadn't broken bone, because he bought flowers after, because he cried and said he was scared of losing me. 2 years, I whispered. Maybe. Longer. It started small. Maylor nodded once, slowly, like he'd heard this story in different languages 100 times. Do you have family? He asked. I swallowed. Not here. Friends? I hesitated, then shook my head. Friends asked questions. Friends noticed bruises. Friends made you choose between loyalty and truth. Mailer's gaze stayed steady. He isolated you, he said, not as a question. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Mailer leaned back slightly, as if giving me space after dragging me into the light. I can keep you here tonight, he said. I can have a suite prepared. My stomach tightened. A suite. Yes. I stared at him, suspicion rising like reflex. Why would you do that? Why do you care? Mailer was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was lower. Because I've seen what men like him do when no one stops them, he said. And because you're standing in front of me with your pride wrapped around you like a bandage, bleeding underneath, still trying to apologize for existing. My throat burned. I looked away, because if I looked at him, I might cry. Mailer continued, steady. You have choices. Not all of them are clean. Not all of them will feel good. But you have them. My voice came out bitter. Do I? Mailer's gaze sharpened. Yes. The certainty made me angry, because certainty was a luxury. You don't know what happens when I leave, I said, and my voice cracked despite my effort. He'll find a way. He always does. If I go to the police? Mailer's eyes flicked to mine. You don't trust the police, he said, and it wasn't a judgment. It was another observation, precise and accurate. I swallowed. They won't protect me. They'll make it worse. Or they'll smile and tell me to file a report. And then he'll be waiting at home. Maylor's jaw tightened slightly. Then we won't involve them, he said. The words should have frightened me more. They were an admission of a different kind of power. A darker kind. Instead, I felt a trembling, guilty relief. And what? I asked, voice small. Does we mean? Mailer held my gaze. It means you're not alone in this anymore, he said. The statement hit me like warmth and terror at once. I shook my head slowly. You don't even know me. I know enough, he replied. My fingers tightened around the glass until it squeaked. You said you won't touch me. I won't, Mailer said immediately. And you won't expect anything. His gaze didn't flicker. I won't, he said again. Not for safety. The way he emphasized it made my stomach flutter in a way I didn't want to acknowledge. Mailer stood then, moving toward a phone on a side table. He pressed a button and spoke in a low voice I couldn't fully make out. A name, maybe? Instructions. His tone didn't change, but it carried the kind of authority that made people move fast. When he hung up, he looked at me. A room will be prepared, he said. Food will be sent up. A woman will be assigned to you for the night. She'll stay outside your door. If you want her to leave, you tell her. I stared. A woman? Mailer nodded. You're safer with a woman nearby, he said. And you'll feel less watched. The fact that he considered that he understood the way male presence could feel like a threat even when it wasn't, made my throat tighten. What about Brennick? I whispered. Mailer's gaze turned colder. He is not coming back into this building, he said. And when I go to work tomorrow? Mailer's eyes stayed on mine. You will not go back to him tomorrow, he said. My heart stuttered. I can't just leave. I have a lease. He'll destroy my things. Maylor's voice remained calm. Your things are not you, he repeated. You will choose what to save later. Tonight, you'll rest. Rest. The word felt foreign. My body didn't know how to do it without bracing for impact. I shook my head, overwhelmed. This is insane. Maylor's mouth tightened slightly, as if he agreed but didn't care. Insane is letting him keep breaking you because you're afraid of disrupting your routine, he said quietly. Insane is treating survival like it's normal. My eyes stung. I looked away, jaw clenched. He didn't press further. He waited. The patience was its own pressure. A knock came at the door. Maylor moved to open it. A woman stood there in a black suit, hair pulled back, eyes sharp and calm. She looked like she belonged to Maylor's world, but her gaze on me wasn't predatory. It was assessing, protective. Ms. Vale, she said, voice low. I'm Ione. The name was as uncommon as mine. Suited her. Maylor spoke quietly. Ione will take you to the suite, he said. If you need anything, you tell her. I swallowed hard, standing slowly, my knee flaring with pain. I tried to hide it. I failed. Ione's eyes flicked to my leg. Her expression didn't change, but her voice softened slightly. I can walk slow, she said. Something about the simple kindness nearly broke me. Maylor watched me, his gaze steady. You're safe tonight, he said again. I wanted to believe him. I wanted it so badly it hurt. I followed Ione down a hallway that felt like a private spine of the building, quiet and guarded. The suite was on a high floor with windows that made the city look like a field of stars. The bed was too neat, too large. The bathroom smelled like clean stone and expensive soap. Everything about it screamed wealth and safety and distance from my real life. Food arrived on a tray, untouched by hands, placed on a table like an offering. I couldn't eat. My stomach was knotted tight. Ione stood near the door, arms folded, face composed. You can sleep, she said. I gave a humorless exhale. I don't know how. Ione's gaze softened just a fraction. Then you can sit, she said, and breathe. That's enough for now. I sat on the edge of the bed carefully, my knee screaming. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind the ache and the exhaustion like a heavy coat. My body trembled with the aftershock of fear. I stared at the dark glass of the window, my own reflection faint. A woman with tired eyes and too much control in her jaw. A woman who looked like she could be normal if you didn't know what her sleeves hid. My mind kept jumping to Brennick, to his anger, to his hands, to the way he would tear the apartment apart looking for me, to the way he would call and call and call. My phone was off. The silence was both relief and terror. At some point, Ione spoke quietly into her earpiece. I heard a low response. The calmness of it, the routine, made me realize this wasn't new for them. They had protocols. They had practiced saving people in ways that didn't involve paperwork or courtrooms. That thought scared me more than I wanted to admit, because it meant Maylor wasn't just a wealthy businessman who happened to be kind. It meant he lived in a world where protection was organized, where power was applied without asking permission. I lay back slowly on the bed, fully clothed, my shoes off. The sheets were cool. My knee throbbed. My shoulder burned. My mind spun. I didn't sleep so much as drift in and out of shallow darkness, waking every time my body remembered the shape of Brennick's anger. When morning light filtered through the curtains, pale and soft, I felt like I'd survived something. Ione was still there, sitting in a chair near the door, eyes open, alert. She looked up when I stirred. Morning, she said quietly. My throat was dry. My voice came out rough. He didn't. Ione shook her head. He didn't get in, she said. Relief hit so hard I nearly cried. A knock came again. Ione stood, checked something through a small screen near the door, then opened it. Mailer stepped in. He didn't wear the same suit as yesterday. This one was charcoal, crisp. He looked like he hadn't slept. But if he hadn't, he didn't show it the way I did. He carried exhaustion like another controlled layer. His gaze went to me immediately. He didn't stare. He assessed, like a doctor might, but without the clinical detachment. Did you sleep? He asked. I swallowed. A little. Maelor nodded, accepting that as a victory. He glanced at Ione. Thank you, he said. Ione dipped her head once and stepped out, closing the door behind her, leaving me alone with him. My pulse spiked. Alone with him felt different. The room seemed to hold its breath. Maelor moved slowly, stopping a respectful distance away. I'm not here to overwhelm you, he said. I'm here to give you options. I swallowed. I don't have many. You have more than you think, he replied. My hands curled into the blanket at my sides. Brennick will be furious. Mailer's eyes darkened. Yes, he said. I waited for him to say something comforting. He didn't. He didn't lie. He didn't paint the world soft to make it easier to swallow. That honesty made me feel oddly steadier. Mailer continued, voice calm. I had someone look into him, he said. My stomach clenched. You... what? His gaze stayed on mine. I said I noticed things, he replied, as if that explained everything. Fear flashed. That's not legal. Maylor's mouth tightened slightly. Most things that keep people safe aren't, he said. The statement should have sent me running. Instead, it made my chest tighten with the reality of my life. Brennick's hands weren't legal either, and no one had stopped him. What did you find? I asked, voice thin. Mailer's gaze sharpened. He has a record, he said. Assault. No conviction. A restraining order filed by a woman who withdrew it. A pattern of moving jobs quickly, debts he can't pay. My stomach churned. He said those were lies. Mailer's eyes held mine. He says what he needs to say, he replied. I swallowed hard, shame burning. So what now? Mailer's voice stayed steady. Now you decide what you want, he said. Do you want to leave him? The question landed like a weight. It was so simple and so impossible. My throat tightened. It's not that simple. Maelor nodded once. I know, he said quietly. So answer the real question. Do you want to be free? My eyes stung. I stared at the carpet because looking at him felt like being seen too deeply. Yes, I whispered. The word came out like a crack in stone. Maelor's gaze softened just slightly, not into tenderness, but into something like respect. Then we move, he said. My heart pounded. How? Maelor spoke like he'd done this before. We get you documents, he said. IDs. Anything important. We secure your finances. We change your phone number. We relocate you. My breath caught. Relocate. Maelor watched my face. He will look for you, he said, and he will not stop quickly. Fear rose. I can't disappear. I have work. I have... Maelor's gaze sharpened. Work can be replaced, he said, then paused and corrected himself as if he understood the meaning behind my panic. Your stability matters. You can keep working, but not while living where he can reach you. I swallowed hard. My mind spun. He'll come here. He'll make a scene. Maelor's voice went colder. If he comes here again, he said, he will learn what it feels like to be powerless. A chill ran through me. I believed him. That was the problem. I don't want him dead, I blurted, the words rushing out. Mailer's gaze snapped to mine. There was something sharp there, almost surprise. Then a slow, controlled exhale. I didn't say he would be, he said quietly. But the silence that followed carried implication, the kind that belonged to his world. My stomach twisted. What are you? Mailer held my gaze. His voice was low. I'm what this city pretends doesn't exist, he said. I'm the reason certain men don't go to prison. I'm the reason other men don't go missing. My breath caught. Fear and fascination tangled like wire. You're Mafia, I whispered, and the word felt unreal in my mouth. Maylor didn't flinch. Yes, he said. Honesty again. Brutal and clean. I stared at him, heart pounding. Then why help me? Maylor's gaze didn't soften. Because I don't like men who think hurting women makes them kings, he said. And because you walked into my conference room with pain in your step and shame in your eyes, and I recognized something I hate. I swallowed hard. You recognized me. Maylor's gaze held mine. I recognized what was being done to you, he corrected. I looked away, throat burning. This is dangerous. Yes, he said simply, but staying with him is also dangerous. The difference is that with me, you have a choice. Choice. The word hit like a dream. My fingers tightened around the blanket. If I accept your help, what do you want from me? Maylor's gaze stayed steady. Nothing, he said. Then he paused and his voice lowered, careful. Not as payment. Not as obligation. My chest tightened. And if later you want something? Maylor watched me for a long moment, and something in his eyes shifted into restraint so intense it felt like a physical barrier. If I ever want anything from you, he said, I will ask. And you will be free to say no. My breath caught. The respect in that was so unfamiliar it felt like pain. I swallowed hard, voice barely working. Okay. Maylor nodded once, like that single word carried weight. Get dressed, he said. We'll go get your things. Panic surged. I can't go back. You won't go alone, Maylor replied. My stomach churned. He might be there. Maylor's eyes went cold. If he's there, he said, he will leave. The certainty made my skin prickle. I dressed with hands that shook, pulling on a sweater even though the suite was warm, because my skin wanted the cover. I pulled my hair back tightly, because loose hair made me feel vulnerable. I applied more concealer in the bathroom mirror, dabbing gently, avoiding the tender spots. When I stepped out, Maylor was waiting near the door. He didn't look at my body like it was his to evaluate. His gaze stayed on my face, on my eyes, as if that was the only place consent lived. We'll do this quickly, he said. I nodded, throat tight. The private elevator took us down. Ione joined us at the 48th floor, along with two men in black suits whose faces looked carved out of quiet violence. They didn't speak to me. They didn't leer. They simply existed, like walls. Maylor stood slightly in front of me, not touching, but placed so that if someone came toward us, they would have to go through him first. The car that waited outside was black, clean, anonymous in a way that screamed money. The city air hit my face like a slap, cold and sharp. My eyes darted instinctively, searching for Brennick. Maylor noticed the movement. He isn't here, he said quietly. How do you know? Maylor's gaze stayed forward. Because I would have been told, he replied. The car moved through the city, and my stomach stayed clenched the entire time. Every street corner felt like a potential ambush. Every parked car looked suspicious. My mind ran wild with images of Brennick stepping out, blocking the sidewalk, grabbing my arm, dragging me back while strangers looked away. When we turned onto my street, my breath caught. The buildings here were older, cheaper, dirtier. The sidewalks cracked. The air smelled like fried food and exhaust. It felt like a different world from Maylor's tower, and the contrast made shame flare in my chest. The car stopped down the block from my building. Maylor looked at me. "Stay in the car," he said. My heart pounded. "But my things." "Ione will go," he said. "You'll tell her what you need." I swallowed hard. What if he's inside? Maylor's gaze turned colder. "Then he will be removed," he said. I nodded, hands shaking. Ione stepped out with one of the men. They moved like they'd rehearsed it. Efficient, silent. They disappeared into my building like shadows. Maylor stayed in the car with me. The silence between us felt heavy, charged. I stared out the window, watching my own front door like it was a mouth. "I feel like I'm doing something wrong," I whispered, the confession slipping out, before I could stop it. Maylor's gaze stayed on the street. "You've been trained to think leaving is betrayal," he said quietly. My throat burned. "He'll say I'm ungrateful." Maylor's jaw tightened. "He will say whatever keeps you small," he replied. I swallowed hard, blinking fast. Maylor spoke again, softer. "You're not weak," he said. "You're exhausted." The words hit like something warm poured over ice. My chest tightened, and I hated myself for how badly I wanted to believe him. Ione returned with a bag, then another, then my folder of documents, my passport, my birth certificate, my work paperwork. The things Brennick kept in a drawer he claimed was safer in his possession. My stomach twisted seeing them in her hands, proof of how much of my life he'd controlled. Ione passed them to me. "Anything else?" she asked. I stared at the building, at the window of our apartment. Curtains closed. Dark. "My grandmother's necklace," I whispered suddenly. It wasn't valuable, but it was mine. The only thing that had belonged to someone who loved me without bruises. Ione nodded once and went back in. Maylor watched the building with a stillness that made my skin prickle. "He isn't inside," he said after a moment. I stared at him. "How can you be sure?" Maylor's gaze stayed forward. "Because if he was," he said quietly, "I would feel the urge to break something." The bluntness made a shiver run through me. Not because it was cruel, because it was honest. Ione returned with the necklace. She placed it in my palm. My fingers curled around it like a lifeline. We drove away. As my street disappeared behind us, something inside me loosened and tightened at the same time. Relief, grief, fear, all tangled. I pressed my forehead to the cool glass and tried not to cry. Back at the tower, Maylor had a smaller suite prepared on a lower private floor, still luxurious, but less like a hotel and more like a place someone could actually live. There were clothes in the closet in my size, simple and soft. Toiletries arranged neatly, a phone on the table. "A new number," Maylor said when he saw me looking at it. "If you want it." My chest tightened. "He'll call my old one." "I know," Maylor replied. "Let him." The steadiness in his voice made me feel both safer and more aware of the fact that I was standing too close to something that could swallow me whole. For the next 2 days, my life became a strange suspension. I went to work, escorted discreetly through staff elevators so no one noticed. My supervisor treated me with a new, brittle politeness, as if she'd been reminded who owned the air. I didn't go home. I didn't answer my old phone. I watched Brennick's messages pile up on the device I kept off most of the time, only turning it on briefly to see what storm was forming. "Where are you? You think you're funny? Answer me. I'm sorry. Please. If you don't come back, I'll ruin you. I swear I'll—" The escalation was predictable, and still it made my stomach knot. Maylor didn't hover. He didn't show up in my workspace. He didn't demand updates every hour. He simply placed people around me like invisible architecture. Ione became a constant presence. Near, quiet, never invasive. Sometimes she sat outside my office door, pretending to be on a call. Sometimes she waited by the private elevator, her expression unreadable. At night, Mailer checked in once. Always once. A short message sent to the new phone. Are you safe? That was it. No flirting, no pressure, no expectation. It should have been easier that way. It wasn't. Because every time his name appeared on the screen, something in my chest tightened with awareness. Not of romance, not yet. Of power, of safety, of the strange, dangerous comfort of being seen and not mocked. On the third night, I couldn't sleep. My knee had improved slightly but still ached. Bruises shifted colors beneath my sweater. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint hum of the building. A soft knock came at the door. I sat up, heart pounding. It's me. Maylor's voice came through, low and calm. May I come in? The question, may I, hit me like a shock. Consent as a default, consent as a rule. I swallowed hard. Yes, I whispered, then louder. Yes. The door opened. Maylor stepped in slowly, stopping just inside as if giving me the choice to tell him to leave. He wasn't in a suit. He wore a dark shirt, sleeves rolled, hair slightly less perfect. He looked more human. And somehow that was more frightening, because it made him harder to categorize. His gaze went to my face. You didn't sleep, he said. I swallowed. I tried. Maylor nodded once. He moved to the chair near the window and sat, keeping distance, letting the room breathe. You can tell me to leave, he said. I stared at him. Why are you here? Maylor's eyes held mine. Because you're alone, he said. And because I suspect you're about to talk yourself into going back. My stomach clenched. I would never. Maylor's gaze sharpened slightly. You would, he said calmly. Not because you want him, because you want the fear to stop. Your mind will try to bargain. Heat burned behind my eyes. I looked away, jaw clenched. Maylor spoke softer. Tell me what you're thinking. I swallowed hard. My voice came out cracked. I'm thinking this can't last, I admitted. I'm thinking he'll find me. I'm thinking I'm a problem you'll get tired of managing. Maylor's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes shifted like a quiet decision deepening. You're not a problem, he said. You're a person. The simplicity of it made my throat burn. I laughed once, bitter. People like me don't get rescued. Maylor's gaze held mine, steady. People like you get buried when no one intervenes, he said quietly. That's why I intervene. A shiver ran through me. I pressed my hand to my knee, feeling the dull ache. Why does it matter to you? Maylor was silent for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was lower. Because I know what it is to belong to someone who treats you like property, he said. I stared at him. The admission felt like a crack in his controlled exterior. You, I whispered. Maylor's jaw tightened slightly. Not in the way you mean, he said. But yes, I know what it is to have your choices narrowed until you mistake survival for loyalty. My chest tightened. Who did that to you? Maylor's gaze drifted to the city lights. My father, he said simply. The word hung heavy. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to hold that information without letting it become an excuse for his darkness. Maylor looked back at me. I am not a good man, he said quietly. My throat tightened. Then why? I am a controlled man, he corrected. There's a difference. The honesty made my skin prickle. Maylor continued, voice steady. You are safe with me because I choose restraint, he said. Not because I lack the capacity to do harm. My pulse hammered. The fear was real. And yet, the way he said it, like a rule, like a boundary, made me feel safer than any false softness could have. I swallowed hard. What do you want? I asked again, because it was the only question that mattered. Mailer's gaze held mine. Tonight, he said, I want you to sleep. I stared at him, disbelief twisting with something softer. That's it? Mailer nodded. That's it, he said. The silence stretched. My heart pounded. I felt exposed in the dim light, sitting on a bed that wasn't mine, in a room paid for by a man whose power had edges sharp enough to cut cities. I'm scared, I admitted quietly. Maylor's gaze softened just a fraction. I know, he said. And then, carefully, he added, May I sit closer? The question made my breath catch. He was asking permission to reduce distance, something Brennick had never done. I swallowed hard. My body screamed caution. My heart screamed something else I didn't want to name. Yes, I whispered. Maylor stood and moved the chair closer, not to the bed, but to the side, near enough that his presence was a steady warmth in the room without crowding me. He sat, hands resting loosely, no sudden movements. You don't owe me trust, he said quietly. You don't owe me gratitude. You don't owe me anything. But you can borrow calm from me if you want. Tears finally slipped free, silent and hot. I turned my face away, ashamed. Maylor didn't move toward me. He didn't touch. He simply stayed. And something inside me, something small and fierce, began to loosen around the idea that maybe safety could exist without payment. My breathing slowed gradually, pulled into rhythm by the steadiness of his presence. In that dim room, with the city lights far away and Brennick's voice absent for the first time in years, I drifted into sleep, like slipping under warm water. When I woke, it was morning, and Mailer was gone. The chair was back near the window as if he'd returned it before leaving. A note lay on the table near the door. Work at 9. Eat something. Don't turn on the old phone. No signature. Just his handwriting. Sharp, clean, controlled. I ate half a piece of toast. My stomach protested, then accepted. My knee throbbed less. At work, everything felt slightly unreal. The world kept moving as if my life hadn't been cracked open. Tenants complained about noise. Vendors asked for payment approvals. My supervisor gave me tasks with clipped politeness. I kept expecting the building to shake with Brennick's rage, kept expecting him to appear in the lobby, shouting, demanding. Kept expecting this fragile protection to fracture. It didn't. Instead, on the 5th day, Ione approached my desk near the end of the workday and spoke softly. He's trying another way, she said. My pulse spiked. Brennick? Ione nodded. He filed a report, she said. Said you stole his property. Said you're being held against your will. My stomach dropped. What? Ione's expression stayed calm. He wants to force contact, she said. He wants to make you come out. My hands went cold. The police. They won't come inside, Ione said simply. My breath caught. Because of Maylor. Ione didn't answer directly, but her silence was confirmation enough. Fear surged anyway. What if they do? What if someone believes him? Ione's gaze sharpened slightly. Then you tell the truth, she said. You say you left. You say you're safe. You say you don't want him near you. My throat tightened. Saying those words out loud felt like stepping into open fire. Ione continued, quieter. He's counting on your shame, she said. He's counting on you choosing silence again. My chest tightened. She was right. Shame had always been his leash. That night, Mailer asked to see me again. This time, it wasn't in his office. It was in a smaller room adjacent to it, with a couch and low lights, like a space designed for conversations that didn't belong in boardrooms. He stood when I entered, gaze steady. Ione told you, he said. I nodded, throat tight. He filed a report. Mailer's jaw tightened. Yes. My voice trembled despite my effort. What happens now? Mailer watched me carefully. Now you decide if you're ready to be seen, he said. My stomach twisted. I don't want people to know. Mailer nodded once. I understand, he said. But secrecy is where he has power. He uses your fear of being judged as a cage. Tears stung my eyes. They'll think I'm stupid. Maylor's voice was quiet. Anyone who thinks that, he said, is too small to matter. I swallowed hard. Easy for you to say. Mailer's gaze held mine. Nothing about this is easy, he said. He moved to a side table and poured tea into a cup, then set it near me without touching me. The ritual felt like stability. Here's what I can do, he said carefully. I can keep him away from you. I can relocate you permanently. I can erase him from your daily life. My pulse hammered. Erase. Maylor's gaze sharpened. From your reach, he clarified, and the correction was deliberate, controlled. He was giving me the truth without forcing my mind into darker conclusions. And what can I do? I whispered. Maylor's eyes stayed on mine. You can say the words out loud, he said. You can file a protective order. You can tell the police you left willingly. You can end the story he's trying to write for you. My throat burned. If I do that, he'll hate me. Mailer's voice was steady. He already does, he said quietly. Not because you did anything wrong, because you exist outside his control. The words hit like a punch. I looked away, blinking hard. Mailer spoke softer. Cyraloon, he said. If you go back to silence, he will tighten the leash until you can't breathe. My chest tightened. The image was too accurate. I whispered, I'm scared. Mailer's gaze softened just a fraction. I know, he said, but you're not alone. The statement carried weight. It was not romantic. It was a promise of structure, of protection. I took a shaky breath. Okay, I whispered. I'll do it. Maylor nodded once, and something like satisfaction, contained, controlled, flickered through his eyes. I'll have someone with you, he said. A lawyer, a woman. You will not be questioned alone. My throat tightened. Thank you. Maylor's gaze held mine. Don't thank me, he said quietly. Thank yourself for choosing your life. The next day was a blur of paperwork and trembling hands. The lawyer was a woman named Celienne, sharp-eyed and calm, who spoke to me like I was capable even when my voice shook. Ione stayed beside me like a shadow. When my shame rose, when my throat tried to close, Celienne waited. When I apologized reflexively, she corrected me gently. You don't apologize for being hurt. I signed the documents with a hand that barely felt like mine. When the protective order was filed, my stomach churned. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like provoking a storm. And the storm came. That night, my old phone, kept off, kept as a record, was turned on briefly at Celienne's request to capture the messages. My screen filled with missed calls, voicemails, texts that shifted from pleading to rage to something darker. I'll kill him. I'll kill you. You think you can humiliate me? You're nothing without me. My hands shook so hard I nearly dropped the phone. My vision blurred. Ione took it from me gently. Breathe, she said. I pressed a hand over my mouth, trying not to sob. The terror was visceral, bodily. My skin felt too tight. My heart hammered. Mailer arrived shortly after, his presence changing the air as always. He didn't take the phone. He didn't need to. He saw my face and understood. He threatened you, he said quietly. I nodded, throat tight, shame burning hot. I made it worse. Maylor's gaze snapped to mine, sharp. No, he said. The single word cut clean through the self-blame. You didn't make it worse. he continued, voice controlled but edged with something colder now. You exposed him? That's different. Tears slipped down my cheeks. I hated them. I hated that I couldn't keep my face composed. Maylor's voice softened slightly. May I come closer? He asked. The question again. Always the question. I swallowed hard and nodded. Maylor stepped closer, slow and deliberate, stopping within arm's reach but not touching. His gaze held mine, and in it there was something fierce and contained. He cannot reach you, he said. Not here. My voice cracked. He'll try. Maylor nodded. Yes, he said, and he will fail. The certainty steadied me even as it frightened me. How can you be so sure? Maylor's eyes darkened. Because I'm better at control than he is, he said quietly. The words carried truth and danger. He was not pretending to be harmless. He was promising to be effective. I took a shaky breath. What are you going to do? Maylor's gaze held mine. What I must, he said. My stomach twisted. I don't want blood. Maylor's expression didn't change. You want safety, he corrected. Blood is a language my world speaks, but I won't make you listen to it if you don't want to. The restraint in that, protecting me from the ugliness even while acknowledging it existed, made my throat burn. Days passed, tense and sharp. Brennick tried to contact me through coworkers, through social media messages, through a mutual acquaintance I'd barely spoken to in years. Each attempt was intercepted. Each attempt failed. He showed up at the building again once, shouting in the lobby. I didn't see it, but I heard about it in the whispered way office gossip travels. A man dragged out by security, a sleek black car waiting, the sudden silence afterward. I asked Ione what happened. He left, she said simply. The simplicity told me more than details ever could, and through all of it, Maylor stayed strangely careful. He didn't use my fear as a reason to get closer than I invited. He didn't turn my vulnerability into leverage. He offered safety like a structure, not a chain, which made the slow shift inside me more frightening. Because when you are starving, even simple food feels like love. One evening, about 2 weeks after I'd left, Maylor asked me to join him for dinner, not in a restaurant, in his private dining room. A quiet space with dark wood and soft light, a table set for two. Food arranged neatly, no staff hovering. I stood in the doorway, heart pounding. This feels... I searched for the word. Intimate. Maylor's gaze held mine. It can be, he said. If you choose it. Or it can be two people eating because one of them forgets to. I swallowed. You're the one who forgets. Maylor's mouth tightened slightly, like that was close enough to a smile to be dangerous. Yes, he admitted. I sat, careful with my knee. The food smelled rich and warm. My stomach tightened with hunger and nerves. Maylor didn't talk much. He asked simple questions. Did your knee improve? Did you eat today? Did you sleep? No questions about my body beyond what was practical. No questions about Brennick unless I brought him up. No pressure. The restraint made me feel both safe and oddly wanted, in a way that wasn't about sex, in a way that was about being treated like my comfort mattered. Halfway through dinner, my phone buzzed. The new phone. A message from Célien. He violated the order. We have evidence. My stomach dropped. My appetite vanished. Maylor noticed instantly. What is it? He asked. I swallowed hard. He violated it, I whispered. He contacted someone. Maylor's gaze went cold. He set down his fork with precise calm. Do you feel afraid right now? He asked. I nodded, throat tight. Yes. Maylor's voice was steady. Then you come with me tonight, he said. My chest tightened. Where? Maylor's gaze held mine. Somewhere he can't follow, he said. The words made my stomach twist, because they implied not just distance, but disappearance. A deeper kind of protection. I don't want to run forever, I whispered. Maylor's voice softened slightly. You won't, he said. But you will not stand still while he swings. I stared at him, breathing shallow. Maylor rose and came around the table slowly. He stopped a respectful distance away. May I take your hand? He asked. The question hit me like lightning. Consent again. Always consent. I swallowed hard. My fingers trembled. Part of me screamed no, don't get attached. Don't confuse safety with affection. Another part, a part that had been bruised into loneliness, ached for contact that didn't come with pain. Yes, I whispered. Maylor reached out slowly and wrapped his hand around mine, firm but gentle, warm, steady. He didn't yank, he didn't claim, he simply held as if anchoring me to the present. My breath caught. Tears stung my eyes again. You're shaking, he observed quietly. I laughed once, broken. I know. Maylor's thumb brushed lightly over my knuckles, a small motion that felt like a promise, and a question at once. He didn't move further. I won't ask you for anything you can't give, he said. My throat burned. I don't know what I can give. Maylor's gaze held mine. Then give me honesty, he said. Do you want to go with me tonight? I swallowed hard. Yes, I whispered. Maylor nodded once, and the decision in him settled like iron. We left within the hour. The car drove beyond the city lights, toward a quieter place I didn't recognize. My anxiety spiked with every turn, but Maylor stayed beside me in the back seat, not touching unless I leaned closer. Ione sat in the front, silent, alert. We arrived at a house tucked behind tall trees, lights low, security discreet but unmistakable. The air smelled like damp earth and pine. The quiet was deep. Inside, the house was warm, minimalist, designed for privacy. Maylor showed me a room and told me where the bathrooms were, where food would be, where Ione would be stationed. He didn't linger in the doorway. If you need me, he said, you call. I swallowed hard. You're not staying? Maylor's gaze held mine. I'm staying in the house, he said, not in your room. The boundary made my chest tighten with something complicated. Relief, and something else. I nodded. Okay. When he turned to leave, the fear spiked suddenly, irrational, childlike, because being alone in a new place always made me feel like the monster could find me faster. Maylor, I said, voice small. He stopped and looked back. Yes. My throat tightened. Will you stay until I fall asleep? The request felt humiliating, like weakness, like asking for a nightlight. Maylor didn't mock me. He didn't smirk. He simply nodded once. Yes, he said. He entered and sat in the chair near the window, angled slightly away, giving me privacy even while staying. He didn't speak much. He just existed, steady and calm, like a guard tower built of flesh. I lay down, clothed, my hands clenched under the blanket. My knee throbbed, but less. The quiet pressed in. My breathing slowly eased. In the darkness, I heard Maylor shift slightly, a soft sound of fabric. Then his voice, low and calm. Tell me something true, he said. My throat tightened. About what? Anything, Maylor replied. I stared at the ceiling, swallowed hard. I'm scared I'll miss him, I admitted. Silence. Then quietly, Maylor said, That's normal. Tears slipped free in the dark. It's disgusting. Maylor's voice remained steady. It's conditioning, he said. Not love. My chest tightened. How do you know? Maylor was silent for a moment. Because love doesn't require bruises, he said. The simplicity broke me. My breath hitched. I turned my face into the pillow, trying to muffle the sound of my sob. Mailer didn't move toward me. He didn't touch. He just stayed, letting me spill what I'd been holding back for years. Eventually, exhaustion dragged me under. When I woke, dawn was filtering in pale and quiet. My face felt swollen. My throat hurt, but my body felt lighter, as if crying had drained poison. Mailer was gone. The chair was empty. On the bedside table was a glass of water and a small note. "You're still here. That matters." Over the next week, the world narrowed to safety procedures and slow healing. Celian updated me daily. Brennick's violations built a case. He spiraled publicly, angry messages sent to the wrong people, impulsive decisions. The mask slipped. One night, Celian texted, "He's been arrested for violating the order. Temporary hold." My stomach twisted. Relief hit, then fear. "They'll let him out," I whispered to Ione. Ione nodded once. "Yes," she said. The certainty of it made my stomach drop again. "Then it's not over." Ione's gaze sharpened slightly. "No," she said, "but you're not where he can reach." That night, Maylor asked to see me in the living room. He stood near the fireplace, the light carving his face into sharp lines. His gaze turned to me the moment I entered. "He's in custody," he said. I nodded, throat tight. "For now." Maylor's eyes darkened. "Yes," he agreed. I stepped closer, stopping at a safe distance, my hands clasped tightly in front of me. "What happens when he gets out?" Maylor studied me for a moment and then spoke with controlled clarity. "Then you will disappear," he said. My stomach dropped. "Disappear?" Maylor nodded. "Not forever," he said. "Long enough for him to lose the trail. Long enough for the case to tighten." My chest tightened. "I can't lose my job." Maylor's gaze held mine. "You can get another," he said. The practicality stung because it made my old life feel small, but it also felt true. "I don't want to run," I whispered. Maylor's voice softened slightly. "It isn't running," he said. "It's choosing where you live." Choice again. Agency. Words that felt like foreign currency. I swallowed hard. "Where would I go?" Maylor's gaze stayed on mine. "Somewhere quiet," he said. "Somewhere you can breathe without listening for footsteps." My chest tightened. The image was so tempting it hurt. "And you?" I asked before I could stop myself. Maylor's eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger, but in focus. "I stay," he said simply. The words landed hard. Of course he stayed. He belonged to this city's darkness. He owned the building. He was the building in a way. My throat burned. "So I just leave. Alone." Maylor's gaze held mine. "Not alone," he said, "with protection, with resources, with choices." It wasn't the same as the thing my heart had impulsively asked. I looked away, ashamed of wanting more. Maylor's voice dropped. "Cyraloon," he said softly. I looked back. There was something in his expression now. Restraint strained thin, like a man holding back a tide. "I won't bind you to me with fear," he said. "If you leave, it will be because you want to. If you stay, it will be because you want to. Do you understand?" My breath caught. "Yes," I whispered. The silence stretched between us, heavy with everything unsaid. Finally I spoke, voice shaking. "I don't know what I feel." Maylor nodded once. "Good," he said quietly. "Don't rush to name it. Names create expectations." A small bitter laugh escaped me. "You're careful." Maylor's gaze held mine. "I have to be," he said. "With you." The emphasis made my chest tighten. I swallowed hard. "Why?" Maylor's jaw tightened slightly, as if the answer cost him. "Because I want you," he said quietly. "And wanting is dangerous if it isn't disciplined." The honesty hit me like heat. My stomach dipped. Fear flared, then something else, something warm and aching. He continued immediately, steady. But I wanted you safe before I wanted anything else, he said. That hasn't changed. My throat burned. I don't know how to be wanted without being used. Maylor's gaze softened a fraction. Then you learn, he said, slowly. Tears stung my eyes again, but these felt different. Less shame, more grief. I don't know how to trust, I whispered. Maylor's voice was low. Then borrow mine, he said. He took a slow step closer, stopping well within reach, but not touching. His gaze held mine like a tether. May I kiss you? He asked. The question stunned me. The permission. The pause. The fact that he was asking instead of taking. My heart hammered. My mind screamed danger. My body remembered Brennick's forced kisses, the way he'd hold my jaw too tight, the way affection had always been a prelude to control. But Mailer wasn't moving. He was waiting, giving me room to say no, giving me power. I swallowed hard, hands trembling. Yes, I whispered. Mailer moved slowly, giving me every second to change my mind. His hand lifted, stopping near my cheek without touching, as if asking silently again. I leaned into the space myself, closing the distance on my own choice. His lips brushed mine, gentle, controlled, warm, not demanding, not consuming. A question answered softly, a promise made without words. My breath shuddered, my body tensed, waiting for the catch, the twist into possession. It didn't come. Mailer pulled back slightly, eyes locked on mine, watching for fear. You can stop, he murmured. I swallowed hard. I'm not stopping, I whispered. He kissed me again, slightly deeper, still careful. His hand cupped my jaw lightly, not forcing, just steadying. Warmth spread through me like something waking up after years of numbness. When he pulled back, he didn't smirk. He didn't claim victory. He simply rested his forehead briefly against mine, a quiet intimacy that made my chest ache. I won't rush you, he said. I whispered. I don't want to be rushed. Mailer's breath was steady. Then we won't, he said. In the days that followed, the world remained dangerous. Brennick was released with conditions. He tried to violate them. Celian moved quickly, tightened filings. Evidence stacked. The law moved slowly, but it moved. Maylor moved faster. One night, I heard a car outside the safe house, tires on gravel, a door closing. I froze, heart leaping into my throat. Ione appeared silently in the hallway, her hand lifted in a calming gesture. Not him, she said softly. My breath shook out. Mailer entered a moment later, his expression colder than I'd ever seen it. He came to the tower, he said quietly. My stomach dropped. Brennick? Mailer nodded once. He tried to get inside, he said. He tried to tell security you were being held. My throat tightened. Did he? No, Maylor said. He left. The word left carried weight. It implied persuasion, pressure, consequence. I swallowed hard. What did you do? Maylor's gaze held mine. I reminded him, he said, that he is small. A shiver ran through me. I took a shaky breath. He's going to snap. Maylor's voice was calm. He already has, he said. That's why you won't be here much longer. The words hit like loss and relief. You're sending me away. Maylor's eyes narrowed slightly. I'm giving you distance, he corrected, so you can heal without listening for him in every shadow. My throat burned. And what about us? Maylor was silent for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was lower, careful. That depends on what you want, he said. I swallowed hard. I want to feel safe, I whispered. I want to stop flinching. I want to stop apologizing. Maylor nodded once, like each desire was a step he respected. And, I added quietly, terrified of my own honesty, I want you. But I don't know what that means. Maylor's gaze held mine with a steadiness that felt like a hand at my spine. It means you don't have to decide today, he said. It means you don't confuse intensity with love. It means you choose, slowly. My chest tightened. You'll let me go. Maylor's jaw tightened slightly. Yes, he said. The word hurt, because it was proof he meant what he said about choice. He wasn't trapping me with safety. I swallowed hard. Will you come? Mailer's eyes darkened. Not immediately, he said. My world follows me. Yours shouldn't. Tears stung my eyes. So I just leave and hope I don't fall apart. Maylor stepped closer, stopping within reach. May I hold you? He asked. I nodded, tears slipping free. Maylor wrapped his arms around me carefully, not crushing, not claiming, just holding. Warm and steady. His hand rested at my upper back, his touch light enough to be withdrawn instantly if I stiffened. I clung to him, shocked by my own need. My body shook. My face pressed into his shoulder. He smelled like cedar and smoke and something clean. Underneath, something expensive and dangerous. I'm sorry, I whispered automatically. Maylor's arms tightened just slightly, not trapping, but grounding. Don't, he murmured against my hair. Not for this. I swallowed hard. I'm scared I'll ruin it. Maylor's voice was low. You can't ruin what's built on choice, he said. Only I can, if I stop honoring it. The honesty steadied me. The relocation happened quietly. A new city. A small apartment under another name. A job arranged through a discreet contact that didn't ask too many questions, but paid enough that I could breathe. Therapy sessions set up with a woman who spoke softly and didn't look at me like I was broken. Ione stayed for the first week. Then she left. But a different woman appeared, less obvious, watching from a distance. Maylor didn't flood my phone with messages. He didn't demand updates. He sent short, steady checks. Are you safe? Did you eat? How is your knee? Sometimes, late at night, I stared at his name on the screen and felt a strange ache. Missing him felt like missing oxygen I hadn't known existed before. Brennick tried to find me. Celian updated me through encrypted messages. He violated conditions again. He was arrested again. The case grew teeth. Months passed in a slow, uneven climb. Some days I felt almost normal. Some days I flinched when a man walked too close behind me in a grocery store aisle. Some days I woke from dreams with my heart racing, convinced I heard Brennick's footsteps. And then, one evening, Mailer texted, May I see you? The question made my breath catch. It wasn't a demand. It wasn't a statement. It was still a choice. My fingers trembled as I typed back. Yes. He arrived 2 days later. When I opened my door and saw him standing there in the dim hallway light, something in my chest tightened so hard it hurt. He looked the same and different. Still controlled. Still dangerous. But his eyes softened slightly when they found mine, like he was seeing something precious and fragile and refusing to crush it. He didn't step inside immediately. May I come in? He asked. Yes, I whispered, and my voice shook. Mailer stepped in slowly, gaze sweeping the small apartment. Simple furniture, clean counters, evidence of a life being rebuilt. You made a home, he said quietly. I swallowed hard. I'm trying. Mailer's gaze returned to my face. How do you feel? He asked. The question wasn't about my knee. It was about my soul. I swallowed hard, searching. Tired, I admitted. But more alive. Mailer nodded once, like that mattered. He stayed standing, hands at his sides, not touching. Waiting. I took a shaky breath. He's still in court, I said. I know, Mailer replied. He won't reach you. The certainty still steadied me. I swallowed, then said the thing that had been sitting in my chest like a stone. I missed you, I whispered. Mailer's eyes darkened with something that looked like hunger held under lock. I missed you too, he said quietly. The admission was simple, controlled. No dramatics, no false romance, just truth. I took a step closer, heart pounding. I don't know what we are, I said. Maylor's gaze held mine. We are whatever you choose, he replied. The words should have made me feel pressure. Instead, they made me feel free. I swallowed hard. I want something real, I whispered. But I'm still scared. Maylor's voice was low. Then we build it around your fear, he said. Not by ignoring it, by respecting it. Tears stung my eyes. How can you be so gentle when you're you? Maylor's mouth tightened. That near smile again, dangerous in its restraint. Because gentleness is also power, he said quietly, and I choose where I spend it. My chest tightened. I stepped closer until I could feel his warmth. May I kiss you? He asked. Yes, I whispered. This time, I kissed him first. My choice, my movement, my agency. His hands lifted slowly, hovering near my waist until I nodded, and only then did he touch, light and steady. The kiss deepened, slow and careful, and in it I felt something I'd never felt with Brennick. Safety inside desire. Control that protected, rather than constrained. When Mailer pulled back, he rested his forehead against mine again, breathing steady. You're not mine, he murmured. Not in the way he thought you were. My throat burned. Then what am I? Mailer's eyes held mine, dark and steady. You're yourself, he said, and you're welcome beside me if you choose it. I exhaled shakily, the weight of months shifting in my chest. And if I choose it, your world is still dangerous. Mailer's gaze didn't flinch. Yes, he said, and you're still dangerous. Yes, he repeated. I swallowed hard. But safe for me. Mailer's voice softened, just slightly. Always, he said. The court case wasn't dramatic the way stories like to make it. It was paperwork and waiting and controlled fury. Brennick tried to charm, tried to lie, tried to paint himself as the victim. The evidence didn't care. The pattern didn't care. The judge didn't care. When the sentence finally came down, real consequences, real restrictions, real distance. I sat on my couch and stared at the wall for a long time. I expected triumph. I expected relief. What I felt was quiet, a door closing softly, a breath leaving a body that had been braced for years. Maylor sat beside me, not touching, waiting for me to decide if I wanted contact. I turned slowly and looked at him. It's over, I whispered. Maylor's gaze held mine. That part is, he said. I swallowed hard. And the rest? Maylor's voice was low. The rest is you, learning how to live without permission, he said. Tears stung my eyes again, but these were not shame tears. They were release. I leaned into him slightly, and he wrapped an arm around me carefully, like I was something he refused to bruise. Outside, the city moved. Somewhere, the world remained violent and hungry. Maylor remained what he was, a dangerous man with a controlled darkness that would never be clean. But his hand on my shoulder was steady, and it didn't demand. I closed my eyes and breathed, and for the first time, the silence didn't sound like waiting for footsteps. It sounded like mine.